What's up, Facebook? Here we are. It's been a little hectic this morning. So we're just scrambling, trying to figure out what's going on. I even trying to figure out, for those of you who watched the stage, if you found out what the UCI jury said about Peter Sagan, let us know, because I don't see it anywhere here on the interweb. Well, let's start this podcast. Is it ready to go, JB?
We are ready to go. We're rolling.
By the way, happy 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. We'll do that. We have too much stuff to talk about. America will sing you happy birthday later. All right, welcome back to the Stages Podcast, Stage 4. And then what seems, this is what's so crazy about these stages. I mean, you can literally fall asleep for 3 or 4 hours. And then all of a sudden,
controversy.
All hell breaks loose.
It's truly what happened.
Yep.
We were all sitting there going, okay, I mean, we have a lot of things to talk about, insider stuff that happens at the tour, behind the scenes. And in the last seconds, it all goes out the window, and now we've got big headlines. It's a big story.
And controversy is a great word, because I don't think anybody will agree on this. And I know that, you know, we watched it and rewatched it and rewatched it, and in slow-mo and an overhead. And the overhead was a little unclear. The tree, whoever put that tree there,
Lost their job.
You're out. Mother Nature fired. But, you know, we're not going to agree on this. I mean, look, here's a tweet from Rolf Aldag.
Let's paint a picture of what happened, in case someone's tuning into this right now.
And not everybody's watched?
Maybe they haven't had a chance to watch it, and they're just getting the recaps for now. So you've got to describe.
Well, what happens is, well, first of all, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more often. In these crazy sprint finishes where the road is narrow and it's early in the race, these boys are fresh, they are hungry for a stage win. They'll do anything. And so, you know, I guess what really happened was, you know, a half a mile or a kilometer before the main crash that everybody's talking about, there was another crash, which was seemingly sort of benign in the middle of the road. It wasn't but that caused a lot of the other guys to either go down or get held up. So then we're left with really like a 20-man race. And with 200 or 300 meters to go, as the sprint is already at that distance from the line, the sprint is already on, like Donkey Kong. And the Frenchman Demare was clearly going away and was going to win the race, but Mark Cavendish, thought his best line was up the right between Peter Sagan and the barriers, and you know, it just didn't work. It didn't work for him, and then that there becomes the controversy on. Well, there's a few things. Number one, did Sagan move over? The rules say you have to, once the sprint starts, you have to, quote unquote, hold your line.
Okay.
Go straight.
That's the first item of discussion.
That's the problem. And if he's going to get disqualified, and disqualification in this particular instance can be anywhere from, we give you last place on the stage, which means for him, he loses all those points for the green jersey, which he cares about, all the way to you're kicked out of the race.
Which sounds pretty harsh. Yeah,
he can deal with number one. Number two, obviously, he can't deal with. So issue number one is did he not hold his line? Did he not go straight? Issue two, which everybody's talking about, is the elbow. Did he throw an elbow at Cav? But then there's also this issue, which you see a lot of people talking about, is was Mark Cavendish going to a place that was never gonna open?
Right, you take the whole sprint out of the equation. If you try to go into a hole that isn't there from behind and you go off the road, which is what happened if the barriers weren't there, that's your own problem, right? Yep. It's weird because I don't think Sagan was just, in my opinion, it looks like he's just defending his space.
Right.
When you're in a sprint and people are coming up behind you, don't you naturally kind of put your elbows out to kind of hold your space?
I want to get, before we get to what I think of the crash, I'll give you two widely different views of people that know, right? These are not, at Bike Rider on Twitter talking. I mean, this is, so Magnus Backstedt, a guy that I raced with forever, won some classics. He would be able to watch this and have a pretty well-informed and educated and experienced decision. He says, here's my view, and this is again from Magnus Backstedt. Number one, Sagan closed the gap hard. That wasn't right. Number 2, Cav went for the gap that wasn't there. That wasn't right. 1 + 2 = racing incident. So that's, obviously, he's taking the position that shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get up here, and then you get to Rolf Aldag, who is Mark Cavendish's director. And he tweets, "Time to step it up, UCI." The UCI is the governing body of the sport. So he's talking to the commissars. You have a 3-person or whatever person panel that is going to decide whether or not Sagan is eliminated from the race or relegated. Aldag, "Time to step it up, UCI. This was not a race accident. This was violence. Hard to DQ a world champion from the tour, but needs to be done." So that's obviously he has his own personal stake in all of this, but that's a very different opinion. And I've watched this, we've all watched this, and I've been communicating with George Hincapie, try to get his view on what, in the mind of a sprinter or a finisher like that, how he views it. He thought it was dirty. The elbow, let's get to, if he moved off the line and the rule says you can't move off the line, then you get relegated. The elbow is what gets you kicked out of the tour. And so, to me, the elbow, if you watch it closely, the elbow came after. Cavendish was already on his way to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It would be another thing if clearly the elbow caused him to either go into the barrier or crash but first of all, Sagan sprints, he's always got the elbows out.
He looks like the animated cartoon drawing of a sprinter, where it is very bowed up.
Well, you want to be bowed up because you want space. Mm-hmm. And if you're not bowed up, then somebody's going to take your space.
Right.
And here I'm talking like I've been in there. I mean, I would never ever go in that crowd. But when Cav's going down, I'm not trying to defend anything, but I'm 100% sure that elbow did not cause the crash. And is he trying to stabilize, because he's losing it a little too? Is he trying to get his balance? That's the big discussion. That's the big debate.
You know, you said the other day on this podcast that the sprints are scary. That was not your specialty. And it's scary for a reason, because those guys are wired very differently. Not only do they have the leg speed, the kind of track speed, but they have this aggressiveness that they're going to push through and they're going to hold their place.
Yep.
It's like that's why they win, is because they don't let someone come in from behind and just move them out of the way. That's not what they do.
Well,
does that make sense?
Well, it does, and that's when I told you the other day, like, these guys surely must get scared. And then later in the day, which I'm glad he's listening to this podcast, but I get a text from Walson Craddock. I put it up on my Instagram. He says, sprinters don't get scared. That's next level. Like, how do you not? Whatever. If they don't get scared, then they're out of their mind.
I think they are a bit out of their mind.
They are.
They're like the guys that jump out of airplanes and do all that sort of X game type stuff. They're just wired differently.
Here's the other thing too, and I mentioned this a minute ago. You know, there was already a crash a kilometer before this, so we basically had a 20-man race. If that field is intact and that crash happens, it's not 2 guys on the ground or 3 guys on the ground.
50 guys.
There is a lot of guys on the ground. No telling how many GC guys. No telling how many, other. I mean, there's carnage everywhere with that narrow road.
So the riders in a situation like this, and we'll get to audio clips of both Sagan and Cavendish. When the riders saw there's a couple technical bends there before that sprint. They know it's a narrow sprint. Everybody knows it's going to be a narrow sprint. Do they have a problem before that stage even happens? Like, oh, that sprint's too narrow. This is going to be a mess. I don't know if I'm asking you a tactical question or a governing body question.
No, you're asking me a question. I know what you're asking me. You're asking me if the riders are concerned about a course, a corner, any piece of this route. And it's, again, we're talking 2005 or whatever miles. We're talking a lot of pavement, right? So it's hard, maybe even impossible, to look at every piece of it. Let's just go back to the prologue, right? So the prologue, the course was set, the rain came, the crashes happened, and everybody just goes crazy. how can this happen? And this course wasn't safe, etc. I've said it for years, and I'm going to say it again right here, right now. Until the riders get their shit together and get unified and unionized and get a seat at the table, don't talk about it after. Be at the table that when they're saying, okay, we're going to go left here and right there, and this is the course, and this is how narrow have a seat at the table and say, no, we are not going to do that, actually. We're going to do something very different, because we're the actors in the play, and the actors are the ones that matter the most. Not Christian Prudhomme and Brian Cookson back there sipping champagne. They do not matter.
Do you have any recollections of a protested course where they just...
You know, the most common protest is weather. It's too hot. It's too cold. Very rarely that it's too hot, but it's too cold. It's snowing. It's which it should, they should protest that.
See, look at me now being such a media guy. I'm trying to blame the course now. When we started out with who was at fault here, Cavendish or Sagan, now I'm going after the course. Maybe we just need to leave it up to racing.
Let's not kid ourselves. You could have a perfectly safe course that all the stakeholders have sat down and approved, the governing body, the organizer, the riders, the teams, the sponsors. Say, okay, check. Perfectly safe course, and you still have what happened. You could have what happened today, right? That's not that you can't control those things. But my point, and I'm going to say two things. One, I say this all the time. The actors in this play, the best cyclists in the world needed union. And I'm not talking like an email address, like I'm going to email the union, like a real union. And so we're addressing safety, we're addressing work conditions, we're addressing pension, we're addressing revenue share. The most important thing is revenue share.
Oh, we might have to dig into that.
That's a whole other episode. But I also want to bring this back to me, and this is a full confession, unlike any other confession. But I probably, if I think back to early 2000s, I probably had the ability and the power and the stroke to galvanize that effort. Other teams, and I wouldn't think about that. And so, but it's going to take somebody to come in and say, no, we are unified, and these are the conditions we want, and if not, we're not playing.
You know, let me put this perspective. I'm thinking about the average person listening to this. They probably do some 50-mile rides in their community, maybe, their country, their state, wherever they live. They they like to get out and maybe mix it up and race amateur level. Maybe they do a triathlon, whatever it is. As a amateur race, every ride or race I've been to, let's just say it's a just a weekend warrior fun ride. Yep. Every race I've ever been to or ride, I'm pretty sure someone left in an ambulance. See where I'm going with this? Well, it's just danger. Being on two wheels is just dangerous when you get speed and regard the course, whatever it is. Even at the most simple level, for us weekend warriors, accidents happen.
It does, and that's the nature of this game. I mean, until we put training wheels on everybody, people are going to fall over. We're not advocating for training wheels, but that's an inherent part of this. That's just part of the deal. But that is going to happen in its own way. But let's try to minimize those other factors that could sort of get in the way and create these things. And we almost got off the topic of the real story of the day, but what happened today is what happens in your local criterium or your local road race or what your local triathlon. That happens. But yeah.
You want to hear from the riders?
Let's hear it.
Of course, they have a lot to say outside.
Let me first see if this is so funny. I've never sat here and looked at Twitter this much. It's so you just read it. I mean, all the cycling things, and it just varies so much. And these aren't Sagan fanboys and Cavendish fanboys. These are people that just have an opinion. Yeah. But there's no ruling that I can tell. There's no ruling from the jury right now.
Are you seeing a consensus? Does it seem to be swinging one way or the other?
Well, the biggest consensus right now is "Happy Birthday, America."
Okay. Let's listen to their post-ride comments. Of course, Cavendish being mobbed, got his hand all wrapped up and his arm in a sling. Here is what he had to say. You want to throw your headphones on so you can hear
That might
this?
be a bad idea.
Yeah, that
I
might
forgot that at the top of the show.
That's all right.
Dave, Bolchka.
Here
we go.
It was chaotic.
By the way, I got my haircut. Facebook, did you? I buzzed it yesterday. By myself.
Did you really?
Looking okay? Yeah.
You cut your own hair?
I do most of it. I do like 3/4 of it, and then Anna comes in and does the back. I can't see the back, and so she helps out.
Not many people can.
No. Let's do this.
Let the professionals handle it.
No way.
Here's Cavendish outside his bus after the crash, after he could finally get the media to move away from him. I want to talk to you about that at some point, too.
Yeah, right.
My gosh, the mob. Here's Cavendish and his comments.
Can you tell us what happened and what your injuries seem to be?
I think injury-wise, I'm going to go and get it checked out. I definitely need stitches in this finger. That's bleeding a lot. And the shoulder, there's something to do with that previous shoulder that I did in Harrogate. It's just sat backwards, so I don't know if I snapped the fake ligament I have in it or what. I'm going to just get an eye and look. I'm not a doctor, I don't know what, but from the feelings, I'm not optimistic anyway.
And the incident itself, Mark, what actually happened?
I was just following Demar round, and then just Sagan come over. That was it.
It looks as though Sagan came to apologise or explain himself.
I get on with Peter well, but I don't get his like if he came across as one thing, but the elbow, I'm not a fan of him putting his elbow in me like that. That was, but like I said, I get on with Peter. Crash is a crash. I'd just like to know about the elbow, really.
But do you think it was unsportsmanship?
I don't know. Like I said, I'd like to speak to him. Like I said, I have a good relationship with Peter, so I just like to speak to him about it.
But it was not physical approach is saying should possibly go home or be punished. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I'll leave that to the jury. Like I said, I'd like to speak with Peter. Yeah. I think to comment and stuff is not really right for me. It's always going to get taken up.
There we go.
Yeah.
So he's more about the elbow than the line. Just a minute ago, you were saying it was more about moving out of line.
Well, I think the rule, I mean, if Sagan's going to get penalized for anything, the easiest thing for them to dock him on is not holding his line, not riding straight. I just...
Because there's less gray area
I don't
in the rule
think...
book there.
Again, I'm not and never was and never will be a sprinter, so I can't think like that. You know, the only thing I also go back to is that part of the sport, right? The sprints, the sprinters, their mentality. They're guys that are clean, and I'm talking clean, like, you know, don't throw elbows and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there are guys that are dirty. They'll do anything. They'd take their foot out and kick you if they could.
Mm-hmm. And they probably have that reputation. He's a dirty sprinter, but doesn't that earn him space?
And there's so much attention, obviously cameras and different angles, and so you see just little moves that make a guy quote unquote dirty. I'm not in the sport today. I don't ride in that peloton, but my sense is that Sagan is not a dirty rider.
Right.
You know, if he had that reputation and that, you know, that mystique of being dirty, quote unquote dirty, and when I say dirty, I mean just mean and nasty, then that might make this incident look a little different. I mean, you saw what happened right after. We all saw what happened right after the finish. He went straight to Mark Cavendish's bus, found cab, checked on him. You could say that's smart, or that was political, or that was manufactured. I don't think so. And then you heard Mark Cavendish say himself, I get along well with him.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: if he was a dirty rider,
all right, never mind.
Okay, we got a ruling.
Peter Sagan disqualified from the Tour de France.
Wow.
I disagree with that. I disagree with. Relegated, yes. Disqualified.
Relegated would mean you move to the back. You lose any points you have.
Points.
But he could stay in and sprint for another day.
I don't agree with that, and I'm not a fanboy. I'm not in his pocket. I just don't agree with it. But
if he was a you were kind of saying this. If he was a dirty rider at this point, how long he's been, he would have that reputation. And when this happened, everyone would be saying, "I told you so. I told you this was happening," because that's how he rides. He doesn't have that reputation.
Look, it's whatever. I mean, we can't. It's not whatever. We can't change it. But the couple things here, whether you agree or disagree, this is the biggest star in the race. So just for the race, right, and for the global following of this race and the attention of this race, the race itself, and I'm not trying to, pass judgment on him or the ruling, but the race just lost its biggest star for the next 2.5 weeks.
And it was a good story too for the fans because he has been ill.
Yeah, he's a great. Back. He's got the wheelies and the hair and the facial but he is the biggest star in this sport by a factor of a lot.
So, what do you think the rest of the peloton will do? Are they surely they're going to be vocal about one of their highly respected contenders getting kicked out? This is back to your point. If there was a union, they could be having a little powwow real quick. There is no unity.
Right. There's not. Or what's going to happen now is there's going to be an appeal. Obviously, Peter Sagan and his team are going to appeal. By the time a lot of you listen to this podcast, we will now you'll know the verdict of the appeal, but he'll appeal, and then the cover of L'Equipe tomorrow is going to be it's going to be a big story, and riders in that peloton will have widely different views. They'll all go home tonight, and as I said the other day, they'll be laying in bed watching the recap on TV. So half of them will say, I don't think it was that bad, and half of them will say he should have been DQ'd, and they'll all be interviewed tomorrow. It'll be a big story. I cannot, I'm going to say it again, I cannot believe they kicked him out of the Tour de France. That is fucked up. I can't believe that.
You could hear in that little presser the media baiting him to say something bad about Sagan. You can just hear it.
Right.
Like that's what the covers want. That's what the headlines want. Do you want to hear from Sagan real quick?
I don't know that it matters anymore, but let's hear what
I know. This is where his thoughts...
Is this him? Is this the sounds of him packing his suitcase? Because that might be interesting.
Right. Might be.
I don't believe it.
Marek was coming pretty fast from the back, and after I just didn't have time to react to go left, and he just came to me, and after I did the fence.
You apologize to Mark.
Yeah, for sure, because it's not nice to crash like that.
No, it's no. Like them or not, I mean, nobody wants to hit the ground like that. And not only did I suspect Cav has a broken collarbone or something with that shoulder. Forget the finger, but how about Deckenkolb going over the top of him, tire right over the head?
I know. No one checks on that guy with the media.
No, but Deckenkolb's wheel, I mean, he just ran right over Cav's head.
You could also hear Cav in that short interview talking about a fake ligament. He has destroyed this shoulder before.
Well, every professional, almost, if a professional cyclist hasn't broken a collarbone, then they need to go buy a bunch of lottery tickets.
That's probably the most common injury, especially sprinters, the way they go down so fast, right? So there's no, again, I'm going to go back to it, and I know you don't have the answer, but can the peloton collectively have a voice as part of the appeal?
No.
None. No voice whatsoever.
No,
they have their own job to do. They just won't do it. They don't.
When the UCI, who's the governing body, selects that commission, that panel of judges, or what they call them commissars, when they select those guys, those are the only guys that matter, right? So if it doesn't have to be, we're going to see other incidents like this in this tour coming up, and whether somebody gets penalized 5 seconds or whether they get penalized. Look at the new rule. I mean, if you throw out a piece of trash, it's 100 Swiss francs the first time. It's 500 Swiss francs the second time. It's that jury that decides all that. That's all that matters. Even if the head of the UCI, not that he ever takes action on anything, but even if he said, no, put him back in, it doesn't matter. The jury is all that matters.
Who's on the jury? Who are these people?
Who's on the jury? They're selected. I mean, when you look in the race book, their cell phones are in here. Maybe we should call it. Could you explain this to me?
Essentially, judges for the entire race dedicate. What are their backgrounds typically? Any idea?
Their background.
Former racers, directors.
Not that. No, they're just. It's called the Board of Commissars. So you have. This is embarrassing. Get my readers on.
Well, that print is tiny, tiny, tiny.
You have Philippe Marianne from Belgium. He's the head of the jury.
Okay.
So it's his call. He's the one. And then you have a member from France and another member from Italy, and then one from Spain. So you have an international.
Okay, they obviously spread that out so it doesn't seem biased.
Right. How you like the readers, Facebook? Huh? So embarrassing.
So, tomorrow we may know results of an appeal. Probably not till
No,
tomorrow.
we'll know tonight.
We'll know
We
tonight.
gotta know tonight.
What happens in an appeal? It's just
Well, it's the exact what like any appeal. Is, one side, Dimension Data, filed the protest. Now I don't know if I don't know if they file a protest to get him relegated or to get him disqualified. Probably asked for that he be disqualified. The panel said yes, and they'll just do the reverse. They'll file the appeal that asks him. They may ask, say, hey, look, just relegate him, dock him the points. I don't know. But I don't think, like any appeal, appeals are rarely successful.
well, if you think rider tactics and team tactics, if Sagan says it wasn't intentional, this is just racing. It's also, hey, this appeal is just racing. I mean, I'm just comparing it to the NFL, which some of our international listeners probably will hate. But if there's any question of penalty, they want it reviewed,
Yep.
right? It's just part of the sport. You're using everything in the rule book. So even if Cavendish said, oh, it wasn't intentional, still as a team and a competitor, you want an appeal, you want to file a protest.
But it won't work. But here we are. It's a bummer for the race. I mean, I've already said what I feel.
So we check in tomorrow on this review, and we will definitely have some new thoughts on all of that. But now tomorrow is going to be some really shake up. This is the day that people were talking about to really start shaking up the race.
Well, tomorrow's the first. This bike race starts tomorrow. Like in terms of, obviously, we've been racing and we've seen a lot of racing. But the race for yellow starts tomorrow. And I see a couple things. And first of all, this climb, I mean, how can you not like a climb that's La Planche de Belle Fille, the whatever of beautiful girls. Belle Fille is beautiful girls.
You already digging it?
Dude. We're here. Why are we? So that's you can't dislike that. It's a climb that I don't ever recall. Wow.
Little biplane.
A little biplane for the 4th of July parade, which we're missing because of this crash in the tour. But
we're missing a parade.
We're missing a parade. I haven't missed a parade in many, many years, so it's a problem. This whole crash, but missing the parade's a big deal. But this is a climb they did in 2012. So Chris Froome won that stage in 2012. Bradley Wiggins went on to win the tour. They did not. Cancellara had the yellow jersey going into that day. It's a couple things. It's a shorter stage, 160 kilometers only. So they've been doing 212, 209. Then we go to 160. So you go from 135 miles to only 100. And I know that for the layers that may sound.
Those of you listening at home,
but for
only 100.
These guys look at 100 miles, and they view that as a short day. Yeah. And you have no action. You have a very minor climb, in the second half of the race, and then bam, you hit the Planche de Belle Fille, which is very steep, short, explosive. We're going to see some fireworks. I mean, we would have seen fireworks here in Aspen today, but we haven't had rain, so they won't allow the fireworks. But we won't see them in Aspen today or tonight. We're going to see them on the Planche de Belle Fille.
So tomorrow, on your recommendation, is a day to throw the party, plan on cutting out of work or whatever it is you want to do. Because I know back, historically we would have watching parties and stuff like that. It was always on stages like this or a mountaintop finish.
It's this particular tour does not have many opportunities for for gaps or for selection. This is one of those opportunities to make a selection. And so all of these guys, the guys who disappointed in stage one, and that's the more I look at that, that's the only word I can use to describe what happened to them on stage one. You could call it cautious, whatever. They disappointed. Nairo Quintana, Richie Porte, Bardet, Contador, etc. This is their chance
to show they're in this
and to get some time back if they've got the legs. Nairo Quintana, he's already said at the start of the tour, he's viewed as a sort of a passive, not very aggressive style of rider, not punchy, not doesn't like to light up the field with attacks on the climbs. He's going to have to do that tomorrow. And here comes the prediction: he will. He's going to do that tomorrow.
Going to light it up.
Yep.
And so if you're Froome, you're going to just watch the front. and go with whoever you think is a threat.
If you're Chris Froome, you're gonna, first of all, your teammate's in yellow. You've shown that you have the strongest team in the race. If you're Chris Froome, you rely on that team. Those guys, you'll be surprised how many of those
He'll be
guys.
surrounded.
When it gets to 20 guys, you'll be surprised at how many Sky Riders are there. And by the way, they will also tomorrow. It's worth noting because we talked about this yesterday. The responsibility of the race, controlling the race, carrying the race, sitting on the front is their responsibility tomorrow.
That was my next question. Sky teammates, their job will be to keep the pace high enough that people aren't launching off the front. Is that probably what we're going to see?
Well, look, that last climb, the Planche de Belfi is only. I lost my pen. You got me looking at commissars of all things. Jesus. If you get to the last climb, you're talking about. You're only talking about 7 or so kilometers. So, all of that distance before that, they have to control that race, and it's not hard for them to do. They can do that, but the last climb, as steep as it is, pieces of 13%, 11%, 11%. The final kick up is 20%. I went and watched on YouTube. You guys can watch this at home. Go type in, La Planche de Belfi, and the finish for where Froome won in 2012. It is steep. Now, guys get to the end of the race and they're like, okay, I can get through this, but nonetheless, you've got these chunks of 13 and 11%. For the average fan at home, you may know what 13% feels like, or you may not. You may think, well, that's not that bad. It's not 90%.
I know most of us don't know what that means.
13%. Most people at home who are average bike riders, if they rode 7%, they in their minds they would be going, "Oh my God, this is steep."
Hill.
So this is they're not playing around tomorrow. This will be legit.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll kind of kick this off tomorrow, seeing if there was an appeal. That's going to be a big conversation tomorrow. Everyone's going to be stirring this up all day, replaying that elbow. You thought it may have been a little bit dirty, but don't think he should have been kicked out.
I don't.
I'm trying to put words in your mouth, which I don't want to.
I couldn't have said it any stronger than I did before. I don't think so. But having said that, I want to hedge a little because I'm not I don't know that game, right? And my place was 50 guys back trying to avoid things like that. I will say with 100% conviction, the elbow is not what caused the crash.
Right.
If you watch it fast and you watch it in real time, it happens so quickly. It looks like, in our eyes as we watch, it looks like the elbow caused the crash. It didn't. The crash was already happening.
He was going down.
Yeah.
I know. It's fun. One thing, it's so easy as I was watching it to watch what's happening in the upper body. The upper body, you see him coming over a little bit. You see the elbows go up after Cavendish was already going down. But if you look at the road, the curb, the barriers, there was nothing left.
Yeah. Look, here's, and I just keep looking at Twitter because it's the reaction from the jury's decision just flooding in. And a lot of these we can just kind of wade through. But look, Jeremy Whittle. Jeremy Whittle's a journalist, British journalist, covered the tour for, not to make you sound old, Jeremy, but you've been around a long time. He says this decision is totally OTT, over the top. If that's the benchmark, then how many other riders should be disqualified, yet more inconsistency? Well, we know that this sport of cycling just breeds inconsistency. I can tell you that. Peter Sagan, we know that. But there's a guy, this is Whittle, he's not on the couch Peloton. He knows what's up. So you're going to, but at the same, there's going to be some other, be a big night.
Do events at this level, and this is really throwing it, being random, at this level, the amount of money they generate, do they ever think of the liability of not DQing a guy like this?
I have no idea.
I mean, I know there's a lot of waivers. When you do a bike race, you sign a lot of waivers.
It's funny. I don't think if you do the Tour de France, I don't think you sign a waiver. Like, I might be killed here. I might be paralyzed here.
Yeah. It's just something maybe that's
I never paid an entry fee either, I don't think.
Mom, I need some cash.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Maybe that's my American mindset. Any event, they just feel like you hear them talk about their liability. Lawyers get involved. Probably don't think that way.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't talk about lawyers because I'm me. Sore subject. No, but you know what'll be interesting? Because we're trying to react to this and respond to this, which we're just going back and forth. Sagan's reaction will be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How he handles. Obviously, I think they'll go through the appeal process. I think they'll lose the appeal. And then what does he say?
Okay.
That'd probably come through in the form of a release. But if there's some sort of a statement, I think he better be very careful on what and how he says it.
Okay.
Because I think this is the point where, and I've been in this place many times in my life where people are trying to decide. I don't know which side I sit here. His reaction will be. It'll be the most important statement he's ever made his entire career.
You know, maybe we can do this if he does have a very big reaction. He's talking to the press, and we feel the need to jump back on here and do a supplement. We can. We can do it on Facebook Live if you're not following Lance.
We can do whatever we want to do.
I know.
Now the only problem is I'm leaving here and going to the parade. And if anybody's ever been around the 4th of July parade in our party over at the Wild Fig, it is rosé all day. So there is no telling what I'm going to say, either on Facebook Live or on this podcast after that. So
I appreciate your honesty.
Yes, way rosé.
It's on. It's America's birthday. It is happening. All right.
Yeah.
Say goodbye to everybody, and we'll tackle this tomorrow. A very, very shake-up kind of stage.
Big day. I mean, let me just briefly say.
Let me get this out, and you get this last thought. Stages at We Do Sport. If you want to send in any comments,
please keep
questions.
Yep.
WEDUsport.com. Send the link if you're watching this on Facebook. Send the link to your friends. Subscribe to the podcast. You might miss it on the live feed sometimes. Stagespodcast.com to get all your feeds.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if we were so buried in this disqualification of Sagan, but and I was wrong about. So I'm 2 for. Geez, I'm batting 500 on my predictions. My prediction tomorrow is Nairo Quintana. I think he has to take back time. He has to live up to his promise that he's going to race aggressively and he's going to try to actually win the bike race. He has to do that tomorrow.
We've seen Port be a little more spunky, though.
Port was looking. I was surprised by him He looked good yesterday. He'll be up there.
Okay.
He's going to be. Has to be.
Those are two that need to do something.
The only other interesting. I got a text from TJ Van Garderen the other day. Thibaut Pinot, who's a French rider who's ridden well in previous tours. This is his home climb. Right. This is where he lives. This is where he trains. This is where he tests. So he's definitely a sentimental favorite at home.
Thibaut Pinot. A religious guy that loves wine.
On my favorite team, Française de Joux, who won today, so hopefully they'll stop whining. But it's his home climb in all seriousness. Now I went back and looked at yesterday's results thinking, yesterday was an indication of somebody's form. I mean, if you're 3 minutes down yesterday, you don't have form. Thibaut Pinot was minutes down yesterday. So
that's a name that hasn't come up.
Yeah, Pinot. So, but that's not my pick. Quintana's my pick. I think he has to try to assert himself. And thanks for tuning in. Big day, bunch of action, bunch of drama. Life's messy. Happy 4th.